presents the Credible Nerds podcast with your hosts, Justin and Mark.
What's up, my nerd?
Hey, Star Wars fans. Welcome back to the Credible Nerds podcast. My name is Justin, and I'm here with my fellow Mandalorians, Blake and Nathan. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome.
Doing great.
Sweet. So we're here to talk about Mandalorian Season 2, Chapter 16, The Rescue. And this episode's been out for a couple years. And Season 3 of The Mandalorian starts up next month, I believe, or at least March. So a little over a month. And so as far as this episode goes, what are some initial thoughts you guys had about Season 2, Chapter 16?
Yeah, I was looking forward to it. This one I was really excited for because I was hoping that we would see, some legacy characters show up. Hoping and praying. We hadn't seen one in the first or second season at this point.
Boba Fett,
but like from those core, the core players from the original trilogy, I was really hoping we'd see something from them.
They're still around.
I'm like, there's got to be a reference to them or something.
Yeah.
I mean, and there hadn't been up to this point, so I was really like, okay, they've got to bring someone around.
They got to tie it in
somehow. And so I was excited for it. Yeah.
Same for me. Enjoyed it. Thought it paid off. Brought a lot of storylines together. All the characters that we've been watching showed up there at the end. So it was great to see all of them come together and have a deal, right? Complete a job. So
yeah.
But we start off with Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Cara Dune. They hijack this Imperial shuttle that has the scientist on it that we were introduced to in the first season, who's in charge of cloning. And they're trying to do something with Baby Yoda's blood. We don't know specifically what it is, but it has to do with cloning. And so they capture him and get some information from him to be able to find out where Grogu is at. So he helps them. They know where the cruiser is, but he helps them. Okay, Grogu's here. The bridge is here. There's dark troopers. He kind of gives them the lowdown for their mission. And they end up meeting up with some Mandalorians, Bo-Katan and Koska Reeves, I believe. Is that who it is? Yeah, Koska Reeves. And they are joined, they join the party. And there's a little showdown there between Mando and Boba Fett, mostly Boba Fett and these two Mandalorians, Bo-Katan, because they don't believe that he's a real Mando. He's a fake Mando. Okay. What do you guys think of this scene in the bar, in the cantina, between these guys?
Obviously, there was some immediate tension there. Because of that, because of the history there. So obviously they knew he was a clone, but he's not a clone trooper. So what's, there's a history there.
I think they know he's Boba Fett with the armor.
You think so?
I think a lot of people in the know it's Boba Fett.
You think, I didn't think about it. I didn't think that they looked at him and went like, oh, you're Boba Fett. I thought I didn't know who he was, just a clone in Mandalorian armor. That's a good point, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think about the fact that he's wearing Mandalorian armor. Maybe that's one of the, there's this guy out there. There's this bounty hunter out there wearing our stuff, giving us a bad name or whatever.
Yeah. But he's had that armor for a long time, right?
It was,
And it came, he says, it was passed down from my dad. But that's, I didn't think that they recognized him and knew his name. I just thought they thought he was just some guy.
Yeah. Well, they know who Jango Fett was. They talked about it in the Clone Wars animation series, specifically about him and why he's not a Mandalorian. And I believe Bo-Katan was there, or she was in that circle of people who know that Boba Fett or Jango Fett wasn't a Mandalorian, but he's wearing the armor. So, yeah, it's passed down to him. It's different colors, but I'm sure they still know who he is anyway.
Yeah. I didn't think about that, but that makes sense.
Yeah, so him and Koska Reeves, Boba Fett, they have a little scuffle, and it's a pretty cool scene where they're like, she's a WWE wrestler, and she was able to show her talents there in this part. So I thought that was pretty sweet. I hope we see more of her in the next season, the Mandalorian season 3. I think she's a great addition to this show.
Yeah.
But they do a deal. What's the deal, Blake?
Well, Nate's the deal guy. The deal was, we'll help you grow. And it is interesting because this is like the third time that there's been a situation where somebody's like, I'm not helping you with anything. And then you're like, well, they got the child. And they're like,
he's got the kid.
All right, let's do this.
I'm in.
Yeah. But the deal was, I'll help you as long as I can recover the Darksaber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So she has some buy-in, even though she doesn't want to work with these guys. She agrees to do so. So then they come up with their plan. Boba Fett's going to simulate chasing them in the Imperial shuttle that they just captured and pretend that they're in distress. And then that way they'll be able to get into the cruiser and shut down the landing bay, kind of block it off so TIE fighters can't launch. And that's what they do. Boba Fett's chasing them and Slave One and trying to blast him, but he keeps missing for some reason. And Moff Gideon's watching this whole thing play out. And I kind of got the sense that he knew something was up, but he probably didn't know, that's Bo-Katan. They're trying to come take the child, right? But I thought he kind of had that look like, something's going on here. And then when they crashed into the bay, he knew what was going on, I think.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he did, but it's not, later in the episode, he clearly did. But how do you think he knew? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think he just knew something was up, something's off, something's happening that is weird. And so someone's probably here to get the child. Mandalorian had sent him that message, I think the last episode, I'm coming for you.
That's true.
Yeah.
So he's like, he's here somehow.
Yeah.
So he went straight to the brig to protect him, right? Because by the time they got to the bridge, he was already gone.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, it was a great scene. I really liked that, how they dropped the TIE fighters down and shot them through that tube. It kind of looked like Battlestar Galactica, reminiscent of that. It was pretty cool. And I liked it. It was great.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked how Boba Fett was able to take care of them pretty easily and then, light speed out of there. Yeah. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. So their plan is the main group will go to the bridge, draw all the attention, and Mando will sneak off around the backside and through the hallways and shut down the troopers, the dark troopers, and then lock the door. They can't get out.
Yeah.
It is weird that the dark troopers were all like stored in that airlock.
Yeah.
It's like,
why is there an airlock in their room?
Yeah.
It's convenient.
Convenient if you want to jettison them all out.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
So that's what happens. The group of Fennec Shand, Bo-Katan, Cosco Reeves, Cara Dune. Is it just them, right?
Yeah, the four of them. Yeah.
So they're going through the hallways of the ship. I thought it was great action sequences. They're shooting troopers left and right. Troopers can't hit them for anything. So it's not just our main heroes, Han, Luke, Leia. It's anybody, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But this is a pretty specialized group. They're trained fighters, so it's believable up to some point. Yeah. But they're able to take out all the troopers, get to the bridge, take control, and they're like, hey, where's Moff Gideon? And then that's when we see Mando sneaking up. He does run in with the dark troopers first, right?
Yeah.
Where he has to lock the door, but one of them escapes and they battle it out. And we see how they're pretty powerful. They're able to handle him pretty well. And luckily for his Beskar armor, he was able to survive and not get pummeled to death, because there was a scene where he's just punching him boom, boom, boom in the face multiple times. And the wall behind him was denting in.
Yeah,
but
not his helmet.
Not his helmet, yeah.
Yeah, that thing can survive a nuclear blast, it almost
Apparently,
looks like.
yeah.
The way that thing takes a beating pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, is Beskar supposed to be the most strongest material in the universe?
Looks like
It seems like it that way, huh?
Because lightsabers can cut through anything, but not Beskar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Make a sword out of Beskar, I guess.
yeah. We did have that staff. That was pretty handy.
But I presume, though, then Beskar can't cut through a lightsaber, though, like, because obviously when they fight, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Although the spear does get kind of hot. You see it shining.
The spear gets hot.
When you think it does that, you think it's going to, like, fold in half or something like that. I don't know. But
yeah, it doesn't happen. So we don't know if it's possible, but he does use the spear to disable that dark trooper through the head, I believe, and pops it off. So then he goes on to the brig, meets up with Moff Gideon. They have their little conversation there, where Gideon's they're kind of talking about, you're not leaving here. He's like, well, I just want the child. You can keep the Darksaber. I don't care about that.
Yeah.
And then he kind of goes along with it. Did you think, Blake, that was going to happen? Like, he was like, yeah, sure, go ahead.
I mean, he's like, I already got his blood. I'm good. You can go. But, I might say, all right, that sounds like a good deal, but I'm going to kind of keep an eye on you while I grab the child and get out of here. But yeah, obviously he reneged on that and from behind attacked the Mandalorian. And then that was a pretty sweet fight, though, the two of them going at it.
Yeah, that was pretty intense.
I chuckle because I know I already talked about this, but when that scene came up, I'm like, oh, it's a good thing they got those baby handcuffs.
Yeah.
They're like, looks like he could just pull his little hand out.
Grogu's just sitting there like helpless.
Yeah. And he first walks in, he's like, see?
I'm in handcuffs. Yeah, I was just like,
but he can't use the Force with the handcuffs on? Is that
what? I know, right? Yeah. Whatever. Yeah.
But
it's that blue light on the inside.
Maybe that's
blocks the Force. Anti-Force cuffs.
Yeah. That's a good point. Why don't you just throw Gideon to the wall like he was doing to the stormtroopers?
Yeah.
So
too tired. He was tired. Mm-hmm. Well, he probably had. So obviously he had been draining his blood. So maybe he was tired.
And maybe
he was like
a little sacked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So why do we think they're going for the blood? What's that about? So they're trying to. There's obviously the cloners involved in that process. Are they trying to clone Baby Yoda or what?
I don't know. I wonder if they're trying to, because I don't see an army of Grogu's, right?
going around in their cribs, doing their thing.
Yeah, floating around in their flying cribs, flying strollers, taking out armies. So I envision that they want to kind of create Force-sensitive, like stormtroopers or troops or, I don't know. But it kind of almost kind of creates that whole argument of if everyone has the Force, then there's really no, I mean, if it's not unique, then no one really is one up on anybody else. But I think that's their thought process is if we have a whole army of Force sensitive troops, we can rule the universe. But
yeah. And Baby Yoda's 50 years old, so their plan would take 50 years, probably at least 20 years to come to fruition. So yeah, I doubt it's to clone a bunch of Baby Yodas.
For a while, they'd just be, roaming the galaxy, eating little frog eggs. And
come on, baby, grow.
Yeah. And then there's that episode where we saw where they looked like they were doing the cloning experiments, and we saw those tanks that had like bodies in them of failed attempts. Then they look full grown. So I'm not quite sure if you could see what was behind in those tanks, but they definitely weren't little Baby Yoda characters. Yeah.
Right. So a couple of things come to mind as we're talking about this from the Clone Wars series. There was a point where Darth Sidious was kidnapping Force-sensitive children to create, Force-sensitive army, basically. And I think that's where the Inquisitors ended up coming from, was from those guys, or at least that process. But that was foiled. It didn't pan out. And then we see in the Bad Batch series where they destroy the Kaminoan cloning facility. So maybe, and that was just right after episode 3, a couple years after. So maybe all that technology has been lost, but then they found this scientist guy who worked with the Kaminoans, so he knows kind of how it works. And so they're trying to recreate that whole cloning process, even though they destroyed all the the facilities earlier. So maybe that's why there's all those failed clones, and they have to try and get, instead of kidnapping Force-sensitive children, they have to create their own Force-sensitive people and clone them at the same time. So,
well, maybe this all plays into not necessarily even making an army. Maybe this just kind of is like the very, very early genesis of the Emperor trying to make a Snoke, and we're just assuming they're trying to like make a bunch of Force-sensitive people, but really, ultimately, in the final trilogy, maybe it just plays into that, and they're trying to collect as much M-count Force-sensitive type beings to help the Emperor do whatever he's doing, which doesn't happen for years later. I don't know.
I think that's a better idea. I think that's more on point than what I was talking about.
Yeah.
I think, they need this Force body for the Emperor to inhabit. They end up getting Snoke at first, apparently. And then, but they want DNA material that has a high M count, high midichlorian count. Because if it's a low one, then he can't be as powerful. But if it's a high count, then he can be more powerful.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a process to create one Force-sensitive being that the Emperor's body can inhabit.
And then that doesn't work. And then Rey is kind of like, becomes like a vessel, the next best idea of a future vessel for him. When, he finds out that he's got a grandchild, if you will, if that's what it is. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Hopefully you've seen the movies by now. Okay. Yeah, it'd be cool if they kind of retconned that whole process, recreated that process. Because in the movie, it's like somehow Palpatine returned.
Yeah.
That's it.
He's just there.
He's just there. So maybe they're going to explain that whole process. Because it'd be hard to explain the whole process in a movie, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be better in an episodic TV show. So
yeah.
Cool. I hope we get to see that. And then, what's his name? Moff Gideon does kind of say, this is in preparation for the next order or a new order in the universe.
Bring order.
Bring order. Yeah. Hinting at, the first order, and then Palpatine brings up, this is the final order in episode 9. So that's kind of the linguistics of it all, I believe. So he turns his back on him. He starts getting beat up by the Darksaber, and we see that the Darksaber can't penetrate or cut Beskar, and he's defending himself pretty well. And then he gets the staff, and there's a big duel there, and Mandalorian is able to conquer and defeat Moff Gideon. And he brings everybody up to the bridge. And once he does that, we see Bo-Katan kind of upset about that.
Yeah. I like how Moff Gideon's like, you're not going to kill me? This will be interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Good hint there.
Yeah.
So, Bo-Katan's not happy to see either of them. And it's because she has to win the combat, or the Darksaber in combat, to be considered the ruler of Mandalore. But now, Din Djarin has it. So how does that get resolved?
Yeah.
And he tries to be like, oh, here, just take it. I don't want it. I yield.
Checkers.
Here. Yeah, here you go. We need some checkers or Connect 4 or thumb wrestling, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So, but I think we'll see that come to fruition next season.
Think so?
Yeah, I think we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, there was definitely some tension there, like an impasse, right? Obviously, they weren't going to battle to the death right then.
Yeah.
But it was obvious that it was going to come to a head.
Yeah, you at that point, we don't know that the Dark Troopers are going to show up, and you have no idea. There's no imminent threat, so we're like, what's happening?
Yeah.
But then that all gets pushed aside when the Dark Troopers fly back on the ship. But I don't know. We talked about this before. I have a tough time seeing the Mandalorian taking over Mandalore and being king. I just don't see that in his persona. What do you guys think?
So, I think the way I see it maybe playing out is maybe he goes back and he kind of becomes that reluctant leader.
Yeah, possibly. I think he is going back to Mandalore because we see in the Book of Boba Fett how he confesses his sin of taking off his helmet and showing his face, which we saw in the last episode, or 2 episodes. Was the last episode with Migs Mayfield? I think so.
Yeah, that one or the one before.
Yeah.
Maybe 2. Yeah.
And then in this episode later, he does it. So he confesses his sin to the armorer, who seems to be like the priestess there with that group. And she says, well, you got to go bathe in the waters of whatever.
In the Book of Boba Fett.
Underneath
series,
the city of Mandalore. So he's got to go repent of his sin and do all that. And
baptized.
Yeah. And there's some dialogue in the trailer. Like he's telling someone, I have to go to Mandalore and bathe in the water. So he's going to do it. He's going there next season. Next month that we're going to watch that. So when he's there, is he going to like claim, he's going to be like, I got the Darksaber, I'm in charge now.
I just don't see it.
I think it'll be more like people saying he's got the Darksaber.
Yeah.
He's in control, and him being like, no.
They're all like bowing down to him. Like, oh, king.
But like, who's there right now?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I just, the only, if there is anyone there, it's just, the Empire, and if they have a base on there, which I don't even know that they do. So if there is anybody there, there are probably people who are in hiding, and they're thinking, because Boba Fett, doesn't he say that that planet's cursed now, I could have sworn we've heard that in some of the episodes. So is there some sort of like, what's the term, superstitious kind of thing keeping people from going to that planet? That
kind of a haunted house situation.
Yeah, exactly. Because it seems like no one wants to go there.
Right. Yeah, I think we'll find out. I think that's a good, if it is haunted or cursed, I think that'd be a good plot point.
Yeah.
And then when they go there, there's a monster there guarding something, right? They got to defeat it. That'd be kind of cool. Or just, I don't know. It's a lot of unknowns at this point.
When Boba Fett says the Empire turned Mandalore into glass, is that just kind of like because they blew it up and it got so hot it just melted everything? Is that kind of what that reference is?
Yeah, I think so. In the sense that in one of the, I think it was Rebels episodes, they do go back to try, because the Empire's there, and they have a weapon there. So they have to go there and disable the weapon. It's pre-Death Star, but it has similar consequences, like weapon of mass destruction. So they have to go there to disable it and wipe the files so they can't use it. And while they're there, they do that, but it also blows up, like the base blows up, I think. Or the weapon, they use the weapon I think it blows up, and there's a lot of destruction, and it creates like this glass thing.
Mandalore has a moon that orbits it, right? And aren't there, that's where one sect, the Death Watch, they had left Mandalore and were on that moon for a period of time, right?
Yeah.
And are they still, isn't that where the Mandalore is kind of his group is from? Although he doesn't really understand or know that. It sounds like from what we've watched episodes, because Bo-Katan's like, oh, you're one of those. So it seems like he doesn't really understand. He's like, what are you talking about? Aren't all Mandalorians the same? So it doesn't seem like he really understands the history there.
Yeah. Well, the Death Watch saved him from getting killed, but we don't know what happened after that, really, because we just see it in flashbacks.
Yeah. But does he only know, his only knowledge of the Mandalorian race is what the Death Watch group is? So. And does he think, or does he like, because he was shocked when Bo-Katan took her helmet off. He's like, whoa. So it makes me think that he doesn't realize that there's other, or at least at that time, he didn't realize there are other Mandalorians that don't follow that dogma.
Yeah, the creed.
Yeah. In which that was, not unheard of to him. Didn't even think that was a possibility. Just assumed all Mandalorians were the same and all. Yep. So I'm curious.
That could be part of what he does. He unites all these factions under one rule.
Yeah.
And since he has a saber, he's in charge.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot of good questions that we'll find out next season, hopefully.
Maybe I should watch more Star Wars.
Yeah. If you haven't watched the Clone Wars or Rebels, you're missing out.
Yeah, apparently.
It's a cartoon, but it's pretty awesome.
I haven't even watched the Bad Batch either.
Bad Batch is good.
And that's a new season out right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. We've been doing reviews on that, so you can watch that on our YouTube channel.
Nice.
Nice.
So please subscribe and like our videos so you
Yeah.
can watch those Bad Batch reviews as we release them. So they're there, and like you said, the attention shifts to something else because an X-Wing comes flying in. And did you guys know who it was right off the bat?
Blake did.
Well, and I think, so before that happens, you got the dark troopers that are just kind of coming in, and they're pounding on that door, and it looks pretty dire. And then that X-Wing comes in, and you start to see, a Jedi come through and really make Swiss cheese out of that army.
Yeah. Yeah, he takes care of them pretty good.
So when did you realize it was Luke?
So as soon as I saw the X-Wing, I thought it's got to be Luke because it's an X-Wing. It's
Yeah.
And so that's kind of when I thought, and then you watch, and then he's coming down the corridor in the dark cloak, and you're like, yeah, and it just it's got to be. And then I think you mentioned the lightsaber.
Yeah, for me, it was not the X-Wing. I was like, well, that's probably Luke. But what really locked it in for me was the green lightsaber. I was like, oh, that's Luke. That's got to be Luke. I was pretty pumped to see that.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. And he just takes care of business, like you said, makes Swiss cheese of them. And there's a lot of cool sequences where he's blocking shots and doing cool things. Did you like that?
Oh, yeah. I thought it was awesome. To me, it was the quintessential Luke moment that we all kind of wanted to see. If they had decided to make a second trilogy, basically if they had decided to make 7, 8, and 9, but of Luke and Leia and Han when they're 10 years after Return of the Jedi, instead we got something that's 30 years later. But I think we would have loved to have seen Luke, Leia, and Han, and maybe in their prime, and Luke in his prime, just kicking butt, taking names, and something we never really did get to see. And so to me it was a quintessential, like, as the Luke hallway moment, as people refer to Rogue One and Vader, and in that scene where he's taking everybody out. It was pretty cool. Yeah. I would have liked, though, I have to say, there's a part of me that wishes that they had revealed it was Luke before all the fighting. Like, he steps down the ladder off the X-Wing, and he turns, and you see Luke, and you're like,
oh, it's on.
And then you see him do all that stuff. Because the entire time you're watching him, you're like, oh, this is so cool. Is it Luke?
Yeah.
Is that Luke? I think it's Luke. It's got to be Luke. And then when you finally get the reveal, all the fighting's over. So I almost kind of wish they had revealed his face before, like he'd stepped off and turned and took the cloak off or something like that. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh yeah, it's Luke. He's here to save the day. Yeah. I kind of wish they had done it that way.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Plus, I think you mentioned the quintessential Luke moment. That's something we didn't even get in the original trilogy.
No, yeah.
Right.
I mean, he had that duel on the Jabba's skiff.
Yeah.
That was pretty basic.
He wasn't ever really a master.
He wasn't ever like completely in control.
Yeah. In order for him to complete his training, he had to defeat Vader, right? Mm-hmm. And then only then could will his training be complete? So you're like, okay, yeah. And when he does fight Vader, in Return of the Jedi, he does defeat him. Vader kills the Emperor, throws him over the cliff, so to speak. You're just like, okay, I guess he's a master now.
Yeah.
And then it's like the end.
Yeah.
And we don't, and you're like, man.
I want to see more.
I want to see more, because we never really ever see him fight, except for fight Vader, except for, as you mentioned, Jabba the Hutt, when he takes those, that brief little fight there. But we never really get to see the master Luke moment that we, that we see in like the video games and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
That's what we want to see.
And we want to see more of it too.
Yeah.
Because we didn't see it in the sequel trilogy.
No.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, no.
So, all right. So pretty awesome. I think we all agree. I watched it earlier today, actually. Still get chills watching it.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. When he gets there to the bridge, he reveals who he is. It's pretty spot on, you know.
The CGI.
The deep fake. Right?
Yeah.
Pretty spot on, except for when he talks. And this is kind of like, you know, the dialogue's pretty limited. Doesn't even say who he is. She's like, hey, like, are you a Jedi? He's like, yep. That's me.
I am.
Give me the child.
Yeah.
I'm out of here. So very basic communication there. And it's kind of strange that, you know, he's lost Grogu, finally got him back, and then he's just handing him over without identifying information.
Yeah.
Like, what's your name and phone number, where you live?
Yeah.
How can I get in touch with you?
Can I text you?
Yeah. Come with me, Grogu. Come with me, little one. He does not want to go with you. He's afraid. Why is he afraid?
Yeah. He's like, he doesn't want to go with you. And he's like, well, he's just afraid. Just tell him to come with me.
Yeah.
Like sounds a little kind of like a creeper situation, but
yeah.
So if your child was like, I want to go with him, you'd be like, no.
It's okay. He says it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
He just showed up, but it's okay.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, I that dialogue scene I didn't like we talked about before. I would have liked to have seen him, and obviously the technology limited it. But I'm not opposed to like finding an actor that looks like Luke, doesn't have to be his twin, and just recasting it. Doesn't even have to have the same voice. I mean,
I think at this point we're okay with it.
Yeah. I mean, the CGI versus a real actor. I don't know. What do you guys think? What would you rather see?
I mean, if it was a different actor, I'd be like, it would be distracting in a different way. I think I'd be like, hey, it doesn't really look like when you go to, you know, Disneyland and like Star-Lord's out there talking to you and you're like, the real Star-Lord must be on break because that guy is like 80 pounds heavier and he's losing his hair.
That's not Star-Lord.
That's not Star-Lord.
Don't tell me you're Star-Lord. I could see right through that disguise, buddy.
Yeah.
That's too funny.
Yeah, no, so I think there's a bit of a trade. I was fine with it. It would have been cool if there was some more dialogue, but maybe kind of that shot from the back or something, so you could kind of have a little bit more of a connection. But because when he is talking, it's a little bit distracting in that way. You kind of see his mouth moving off a little bit.
Yeah.
And you go, because when you just look at him, like when he's looking around and interacting like through body language, I'm like, this is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I liked it, you know.
You know, I don't know if I mean, like the Avatar movies, right? Like they have those cameras where like on their, they could have, I don't know that they did it with this. Did they just try to do like CGI where someone animated the facial features as opposed to an actor, you know, they could have hired Mark Hamill to do all of the acting, recording it, and just de-aged it.
Kind of do the de-age like they do in The Irishman and things like that.
Avengers.
That would have looked probably better.
The Harrison Ford trailer for the next Indiana Jones it looks really good.
Yeah, so maybe it's a process. Because we did see the same thing in Book of Boba Fett, and it was better, I thought. Because he had more lines, he had more action, or doing more stuff. Luke did. So I thought it was better because a year later.
Yeah, but I can't imagine that there was like, because the impression I got is they hired like someone who makes computer games, and they just like superimposed an animated Luke Skywalker face on another actor, which that is what they did. But I would have thought that they would have used motion cap kind of cameras and just taken that shot and de-aged it versus making something from scratch. I if that's what they did, I don't know.
If I remember correctly, they hired an actor who looked similar proportions and stuff, similar face structure, and they got all the scenes of Mark Hamill throughout the movies and kind of created a mask based on all those different things and superimposed that somehow. I don't know if he had the dots on his face while they were filming it, and so they could have reference points and kind of put it on there the right way. But it wasn't, I don't think it was like the Avatar thing where they have the cameras right there and, you know, all that stuff, because that stuff looked really good.
Yeah.
So they did that, and one of the big complaints of the final episode was it's cool, kind of like what we're saying. It's cool, but it's not cool enough.
Yeah.
A little distracting. So then they hired some dude who made deep fake videos and posted them on YouTube. Like, he actually took this scene and made it better.
Yeah, and I saw that.
Yeah, so they're like, oh, we got to hire that guy. So they did.
Yeah. But I don't it doesn't still not that good though, I don't think. So if you go on Disney Plus and watch it now, is it the original or is it the updated version?
I think it's the original.
I think it's the original too.
Yeah. Because the updated was from Book of Boba Fett. They used that guy to make it better for Book of Boba Fett.
Which it is better. Yeah. They should go back and fix
it even more.
Fix that one.
Yeah.
I think.
So
I remember, do you remember they did like those old mummy movies and they did the Scorpion King one?
Yeah.
and they had that, and they're like, I remember reading articles when that came out, they're like, we don't even need actors anymore. and when you watch the thing, you're like, that's pretty cool, you know, and then you watch it now and it's like,
it's like one step above Play-Doh.
Yeah. So maybe we're a little jaded now.
Yeah.
Go back and watch Scorpion King to appreciate it.
That's the. I mean, anyways, that I didn't hate that. I thought it was pretty cool. The Mummy and Dwayne Johnson and The Rock. I was like, the first time you see it, you're like, well, that's pretty cool. But
why did they have to CGA or like do that to his
because
face?
half he was half human, half scorpion. So he's crawling around with a scorpion body, and so that's why they did that.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't remember. Okay, so where were we?
CGI
takes the kid
takes the kid. Yeah. You're gonna come train with me. R2D2's there. Even that was a little off.
What was weird though is, you know, Moff Gideon at a certain point before, you know, Luke shows up, he's like, you know how this all ends. You're all going to be dead except for me and the child. And then as soon as Luke showed up, you know, Moff Gideon used that, use the blaster to try to kill the child.
Oh, yeah.
And then, you know, Mandalorian jumps in front of it and you know, saves him or whatever. So it was kind of again, I think it shows, you know, the child's he's got to be more than just a Jedi. There's more going on there, and there's just this, you know, extra layer of power or something that he's got.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to get some Grogu reveals here soon, because we got to know what that's all about. Like, what's the purpose? What are they trying to do? Who is he? We kind of got that a little bit in this season, but we got to know more. As we go.
The scene was it was awesome and you don't really, you're just so like dumbstruck because Luke's standing there, and that scene you just saw, you're like, oh, that was so awesome, that's cool. But when you watch that scene, that dialogue part, it's really jumpy and not like, there's like these long awkward pauses and as this music plays and people are just kind of like looking at each other and, you know, and you're just like, and everyone's kind of like, what, you know, what do we do now? And you're like, man, there's a lot of dead space in this scene. But I
agree. So anything else from this episode you guys want to bring up or talk about?
So he, you know, Mandalorian does take his helmet off. It's kind of a big deal.
That. Shows it to Grogu.
And that's the first time Grogu sees his face, right?
Yep.
Up until that point, he was just this metal helmet guy.
Yeah, maybe he thought he was a robot.
Yeah. I mean, he did hang out with IG-11 for a while.
That's right.
Oh, you're a human.
Whoa.
check out the stash, dude.
Yeah. Dad?
Yeah, right? Yeah.
So, yeah, that was pretty cool. They see each other for the first time, and he says goodbye to him. Pretty emotional moment.
Did you cry? Did you shed a tear?
No.
Did you get a little watery eyed?
No.
No. How about
I think
you,
my
Blake?
wife did, though.
I did not either. I assumed that it would be the separation would be short lived. I thought they'd get back together soon.
I got more emotional, and I did not cry, but I got more emotional about seeing Luke than I did about him, Mandalorian, taking his mask off. I was like, oh, that's Luke Skywalker. That's awesome. Yeah.
So he takes his mask off, and you had mentioned earlier that you're like, oh.
Well, obviously we had already seen scenes where he took his mask off, right? And but I was just asking you guys the question, like when he does take his mask off, what's your first impression? Is it like, well, this guy's pretty tough looking, like, or you're like, I don't know, he just looks like just a normal guy.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think he looks like a normal guy.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks a little. He's got one of those guys. He's got one of those faces that looks like it's been through more than mine has. It's kind of a, like a grizzly kind of look. Like he's been through some stuff. But
I guess when I look at him, I love Pedro Pascal, and I love his voice. He's got the perfect voice for that character. Mm-hmm. But he just looks to me, he looks a little older. I pictured the Mandalorian being younger, and maybe he is the age that I think he is, but he just looks older. Because to me, he looks like someone who's like, I would expect someone in like the Mandalorian to be someone like in their late 20s, early 30s. I don't know the timing of this episode versus when we see how he's rescued by the Death Watch, rescues him, and when those events occurred, how old this character really would need to be for that to make sense continuity wise. But when he does take his helmet off, I'm like, and I think Pedro Pascal is a great person to play the Mandalorian, but he does seem like he's just a little bit older than I would picture, especially the way he fights and moves, and he's pretty acrobatic, and he just kind of looks like someone who's a little more worn, seen a little more
might
miles.
take a little longer to get started.
Yeah.
But like his character though, and like if he was 25 or something, it would be harder to buy into him kind of becoming this patriarchal, like kind of father figure. He'd still be out wanting to, collect bounties. And
I'm not taking care of no baby Yoda. I'm out here knocking heads and getting paid.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Hanging out with the chicks.
Yeah. It's like, I need no baby weighing me down.
Cramping my style.
Yeah. So maybe maybe it makes sense that he looks that way because he's like, I'm getting a little up there in age. It's time I settle down, adopt a kid.
Yeah. Go around making deals with people.
You ought to settle down with what's her name? The mechanic lady.
No, don't bring her up.
They ought to settle down and just
what is her?
They make a cute couple.
But she likes the Jawas, though.
She does.
Yeah. The mechanic on Tatooine.
Pelimoto.
Pelimoto. Hey. Pele? Like the soccer player.
Pelimoto.
I did see her in the trailer for season 3, so
yeah.
Maybe.
You never know.
That would be funny if they ended up hooking up because she likes the child too.
Yeah,
she's the mother figure.
She is the mother figure. Like, I have everything I need, with his arm around her, and then it pans out, shows the moons.
Yeah, you heard it here first. Incredible Nerds Podcast
prediction.
Yeah,
too funny. I love it.
All right. Anything else that we missed?
No, just the post-credit scene, Book of Boba Fett. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of talk about that.
Comes out soon. Watch it.
Yeah, coming soon.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. I liked that scene. Although we did, they just blast him, kick him out of his throne.
And then he just sits in
there.
There's nothing cooler than killing somebody and then sitting in their seat.
Yeah.
Like,
eventually, though, after about 5 or 10 minutes, you're like, all right, I guess we should probably move that body. It's going to start to smell.
Let's go get something to eat.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to sit on the stone throne for the...
Yeah. But we never see that scene in the actual show, right?
No.
So it's its own thing.
Yeah. When the Book of Boba Fett does come on, that's sometime, probably a few months later. Yeah, and he's already kind of got things going.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But yeah.
Cool. We'll be talking about that next at some point.
And that show was a little confusing though, because it had a lot of flashbacks, flash forwards. It had the 2 episodes that were just Mando specific, which is kind of plays into the season 3. Which, if you want to talk about the trailer, if we haven't already,
I think we'll save that for a different episode.
All right, sounds good.
But yeah, we'll do that sometime in the next couple of weeks and post it. So yeah, great episode. I give it, it's probably the best one of the season, in my opinion. Had some dog fights in space.
Yeah.
Had some fights in the hallways with stormtroopers. Had lightsaber action. Some force action. Cool episode
good.
All the way around.
Yep.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Too enthusiastic.
I can't believe it's been 2 years. You know, like after that episode, I was like, man, I'm ready for more. And then, with Book of Boba Fett, you got a little bit more.
Yeah.
And man, it's finally here.
Yeah. So we will be breaking down episodes of Mandalorian Season 3 as they come out, hopefully, instead of waiting a year.
After we do Book of Boba Fett and Andor.
and Obi-Wan.
And Obi-Wan and Kenobi.
I think we'll flash back to those later.
Yeah.
So rewatch in 20 years.
Yeah.
We'll all be dead.
So we want to thank you guys for watching and listening to our podcast, Credible Nerds Podcast. So definitely subscribe and like to our YouTube channel so we can get lots of subscribers, get our stuff out there so people listen and watch. We appreciate it. Doesn't cost you anything and it's very helpful to us. So definitely do that. But we'll be moving into the Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian Season 3 next, and lots of good content there to talk about. So we want to thank you guys for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Merry Christmas.
Peace out.